早安，我刚起床。
你好，Jess here. D.
你好，我叫 Carissa，我是美国人。
你好，我的名字是
我的中文名字是海美。
你好，Bonjour, Nancy.
大家好，今天我就是想
Following the decision to ban the TikTok app in the United States by their government, Americans are getting back on their government. Not only are they joining the Hanchu app or Rednote, Redbook, but also, what are they doing? They're learning the language. They're learning Mandarin. You might be wondering how they're received by Chinese. Listen.
Our news stations in the US are starting to talk about how we are all joining over here on Rednote, but they are reporting a big mistake that we made a couple days ago.
Now, Americans on Rednote have jokingly been referring to themselves as TikTok refugees. The CEO of Rednote even made a video welcoming new users who speak English to the app, and he also encouraged them to never stop sharing their voice.
This is the video they are talking about because for a couple of days, we all thought that he was the CEO of this app. And it looks like he's even put in his bio now that he is not the Redbook.
Okay, I need to know if any other Chinese people feel the same way as I do about how I'm finding it a bit weird with all the Americans flooding Xiaohongshu recently. Anyway, like up until recently, our language was mocked and our accents were mocked and our music was turned into a meme, and now a Chinese app is being flooded by American TikTok users who are now acting buddy-buddy with everyone on there. I think it just weirds me out because if it wasn't for the potential TikTok ban, so many of these people would not discover that China is just a normal country. I don't know why it's taken so long for people to realize that China is like every other country out there. Like, do you think we're swinging from trees? Wow, I didn't know China had such big cities. I didn't know China was so diverse. Have you seen how big China is? Do you know how many dialects we have? China is a massive country and incredibly diverse. It is beautiful. So the fact that it took something being taken away from you to educate yourself on that, like, that rubs me the wrong way. If TikTok wasn't going to be possibly banned, so many of these people wouldn't figure that out. Wow, Chinese people are actually nice. Wow, they're actually so sweet on this app. Because we have manners, unlike so many Americans, I think it just really rubs me the wrong way that after being mocked for so long on this app, now, because it benefits you, you're coming to the realization that Chinese people are humans. Xenophobia is extremely ingrained in American culture. I can't tell you the amount of times I was out with a person or went on a date with a person and they were like, okay, so what's your ethnicity? Are you Korean? Are you Japanese? And I say, no, I'm Chinese. And the reaction is almost always, oh. And one guy told me I'm pretty for a Chinese girl. You're kind of attractive for a Chinese person. Like, what? Like, my jaw dropped. And people love to see certain things like certain nail styles and certain makeup styles and call it Korean when it's Chinese, to see our culture displayed and to call it Japanese. No, it's safe to say that America hates China. Oh yeah, China's terrible, so be scared of China, not your own country. Oh yeah, in China they could kill you. Well, at least in China, children don't have to wear bulletproof backpacks. Listen, I'm American too, but China is still my country as well. And those are my people, and I would hate for them to be taken advantage of. And they are so kind to let us into their safe space. And now I'm seeing posts that are like skibbity or like really stupid memes. I don't even want to talk about the comments I've seen on Chinese men's posts. Yeah, can we not comment "rail me daddy," please? And the sad part is, they don't know what that means. So it just feels like another way people are taking advantage of them. Stop infantilizing us too. Oh my god, your English is so cute. Oh my god, they're so cute on that app. What is with people loving to infantilize Asian people? I don't get it. Anyways, I will be taking down this video if it reaches the wrong audience. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Americans, on the other hand, are now appreciating the fact that they are getting to see things for what they really are. So this illusion of China that they used to have is being wiped away, and they're seeing things. They're shocked that in China, this is how groceries is packed, and this is how affordable grocery is in China, not only groceries, but also housing and everything, so they can afford houses in China and life is beautiful. But why is all this ignorance in the US? Like, guys, why do you always believe what you're told about the rest of the world is Americans? So American is not the world. Like, guys, wake up. I think this is a wake up call, like, for Americans. And I'm so glad that they're getting to embrace Chinese the way they are embracing them. So why do you accept ignorance fast? I don't get it.
Dubai, and I spend about £350 on meat in a week. So that's insane numbers.
Could American TikTok refugees fleeing to Rednote change the world of international diplomacy as we know it?
I need historians to call this moment the red shift. We are at a point where global influence is literally tilting towards China. And now
Finally, after so many years being ill, go back to China and go back to your country. We've got a shot. So now, go back to America and go back to your country. Okay, just kidding.
I thought when I was gonna read through all these comments, you guys were gonna be saying bad things about me, like, you ugly alien, curly hair freak. We don't want you to learn our language because you are a terrible person. You look like you stink. You're making fun of our culture. That's the type of things I thought you guys were gonna say. But look at this, bro. These people are actually sweet. They're actually kind. They're actually nice. But when I think of Chinese people, I think, what? You know, you guys probably can beat me up because you guys do shit like this. If I get in a fight with a Chinese person, instantly, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Ni hao. Ni hao. Forgive me.
Ni hao. 我的名字是 Tally. I'm already learning over there. I don't feel no type of way about the TikTok ban. I'm already a Chinese citizen.
Hello, TikTok refugees. This is my home in China. I want to show you this apartment. In China, we don't need to pay real estate tax. Like I own this apartment. I don't need to pay every year for the tax. Like after I pay off my mortgage, I just live here. I don't need to pay every year the tax. So even though one day I don't work, I don't have income, I still able to live here till the day I die, basically. Okay, so that's why in China there's no homeless, and that is my sofa, my table, my bedroom, and sometimes I stay here, lie down on the ground to have some sun. And there is a river over there. It's all frozen. It's winter. Someone's skiing there, if you can see. Look, yeah, someone's skiing. And my small refrigerator. I live here by myself, so that's enough.
The Chinese are having a field day with Americans on Xiaohongshu. They're already trolling Americans. Look at that. Is it true that Americans have to work 2 jobs to survive? Hey guys.
I've been scrolling Rednote for hours, and the grocery hauls, you guys, this is why they wanted us to hate China. We are the third world country. They can afford food. They can actually afford to buy groceries. Their groceries are cheap. What are we doing here?
Hey guys, is it true that in America hospitals don't save lives but they just rent them back to you at 30% interest? Is that true? I love that app so much.
This is getting to be too much, man. Too ridiculous. I've been scrolling on Rednote still and found this video of this city. I can't pronounce the name of the city, but this attraction in the city in like downtown is called Harbin. And just look at this place. This is one of the smaller cities in China. When I say small, it's still a huge city, but it's not one of the big ones. Look at this attraction. And it's got like the Ferris wheel. It's got all of these different things in the city of, it's like in the downtown city. And we have nothing like this in America. We are the third world country. And the more I scroll on Rednote, the more I truly believe we are so far behind.
Our Western governments brainwashing us, telling us how bad is China's economy. But at the same time, every restaurant, every night is full of people eating and having fun. So bad, so bad. Chinese are so miserable. Oh.
Did you know in China, when a baby is born, they give them a box full of supplies, everything that they need for the baby, diapers, clothing, and this box doubles as a crib. But in the US, when a baby's born, they charge you to hold your newborn. It's called skin to skin, something like that on the bill. But yeah, I just found that out.
I really think America has made a huge mistake when banning this app, because now that we're all on Rednote, we're actually learning that a lot of the crap that they've been talking about China is absolutely not true. We're like, wait a second, you guys have universal healthcare? You don't have to pay for an ambulance when you get picked up to the hospital. You have amazing cars for very low prices. Huawei, the amazing phones they have, are also so much better than iPhones. And all of that is forbidden here. We cannot have any of that. Wait a second, you can walk at night outside and not be afraid? There's no mass unalivings in schools? What? What's that like? And I had someone comment on my Rednote being like, now that you're here, I hope you can see that we're not the beasts that, you know, your news made us seem to be. And I was like, we never thought you guys were. I feel like we always knew it was bullshit. And yeah, no country's perfect. There's a lot of issues everywhere in this world. But it's very interesting. We're learning much more, I think, than they wanted us to know. And I think that's not a very good idea for our government. Also, I'm shocked by how quickly people are picking up Mandarin. Like, I feel like you guys need to teach me, how do I do this as quickly as you? Because it's incredible. Like, Americans from Alabama are now speaking fluent Mandarin in like 3 days.
I don't trust most Americans' opinion on China. I lived in China for 3.5 years, and I can tell you the news does not paint the full picture of China. It shocked me how advanced China really is. They use mobile payments for everything. WeChat Pay, Alipay. People don't pull out credit cards any longer over there. They have high-speed rails that go just about everywhere. In Shanghai, over the past 30 years, has developed from being a countryside to being a full, blown-out city. We don't talk about this. Also, Americans don't understand how complex China's history is. There are 1.5 billion people in China, and they have a history that spans thousands of years. You can imagine having that level of history. Why they operate the way they do and react to things now is probably due to what happened in the past. For example, so many Americans ask me, why is China so strict on drugs? We're not like that in the US. Well, China had the first and second opium wars where Westerners brought opium and it completely trashed their economy. So looking at this history, we can see why China has such a strong stance on having drugs in the country. They don't want an inefficient population. And the way I think is we oftentimes ask, like, why is technology, like, why are our products not allowed to go into China? If I'm looking at history and I'm seeing all the different ways that Westerners have come over and completely China's economy, I'm like, if I'm trying to build up a city of a country of 1.5 billion people, most of which are in rural populations, how are you going to have American technology come over and completely overtake their country? My whole thing is when we look at China, we have to understand the full picture. It can't be a comparative game with what does the US do and oh, China should do the same thing. We are very different countries. We have very different histories, and we have to understand that when we go to make a perspective, which is why
I think the most interesting thing about this shift over from TikTok to Rednote and the TikTok refugees situation that's happening at the moment is that on this new platform, for the first time in content creation, media consumption history, American creators do not hold the power. They are in someone else's house now. They have to abide by someone else's rules, and they have to respect the users and the creators that were there before them, putting their subtitles in Mandarin and English, making their content accessible to the Chinese viewers. This has never happened before. Americans have never had to create for a different culture in order for their stuff to be successful. But also watching Americans just interact with Chinese users on the platform is something I've never seen in my lifetime. This free exchange of information between American nationals and Chinese nationals, whether it's because of the firewall or the propaganda that's given by every Western government about China. I can't remember a time in which I wasn't told that stuff made in China was bad, that Chinese people were inherently somehow less than Western people. Like, I am fascinated to ask a Chinese person what they think of Westerners. specifically Americans, but also Australians, people from the UK. There has just never been a platform where we can have a free trade of information of just people, not even creators, not even famous people. I just want to meet someone who is my age, middle class, and lives and works in somewhere in the city in China. What this proves to me again, and that we saw with the birth of the internet, and I guess kind of with TikTok era or the social media era in general, is that the internet doesn't have a government for a reason. The American government can do what it wants. It can ban apps from its own country. The Chinese government can put up a wall. But on the internet, people are stateless. And I think that's beautiful. And I think we're seeing the most beautiful version of that in action right now as Americans flee to somewhere else where they can make tiny little videos. And the funniest thing is that you get over there and all of the comments are like, "This is your Chinese spy. Welcome. You must pay the cat tax." Everyone is obsessed with seeing pictures of your cat. So if you make an account over there, send pictures of your cat because you will get a lot of followers. Anyway, that's all I had to say.
Chinese and Americans are now having an amazing bond because Americans are also teaching Chinese how to speak in English, but also I was surprised to see that kindergarten children are now telling Americans to translate their homework for them. So a bond is being created. But let's go back into history. What do we have to say? What does history has to say concerning the history of America and China? How did they get to this point? And what are they competing for? Because it looks like one.
Could American TikTok refugees fleeing to Rednote change the world of international diplomacy as we know it? I'm a China specialist. I'm writing my PhD on the Chinese policy process, and this is an opportunity to share some research that I was involved in a couple of years ago. Specifically, the work of my supervisor. Let's get into it. The TikTok ban in the United States has triggered an online refugee crisis, and Americans have responded in the most hilariously, potentially world-changing way ever. Americans are heading to Xiaohongshu, Rednote, China's TikTok as they're calling it. Except that obviously TikTok, Douyin, is China's TikTok. But anyway, tensions between the US and China have been, to put it lightly, rising over the last 10 years. And one of the major factors driving tensions is American voters' willingness to see China as the enemy, which in turn is driven by American voters' lack of contact with any actual Chinese citizens. Many Chinese citizens are resentful of this uninformed prejudice and have developed a kind of parallel anti-American sentiment in response. And we can see some of this mutual distrust and nervousness coming through in some of the Rednote posts, asking Americans to be thoughtful and not disrespect their hosts, as they are guests on this platform. National governments, like the US and Chinese governments, really enjoy telling their people which othered people or countries they are supposed to dislike. The media then emphasize this and manufacture consent for any kind of foreign policy towards that country by blasting the population with evidence, propaganda, to maintain that mutual dislike. But people-to-people relations undermine that. This is where my supervisor's research comes in. So Schubert specializes in Taiwan-China cross-strait relations, which at the official level are pretty tense, right? But tens of thousands of Taiwanese people, entrepreneurs, students, business people, local officials, travel between Taiwan and the Chinese mainland every year. And those people-to-people relations change the playing field in very real ways. We can think of these cross-strait people-to-people relationships as strategic groups whose interests often align despite their opposing governments. So one part of my supervisor's research looks at entrepreneurs as a strategic group and how they're able to leverage their wealth and resources and access to local governments and their shared interests to bring about policy changes that benefit their businesses. For example, if they're engaged in cross-strait business, they would be able to influence local policies in Fujian, for example, to make that easier for themselves. But that same logic can be applied to other people-to-people relations, like students or regular citizens who are just interested in learning about another culture. Because official relations between two countries don't have to define every single relationship between two people from those countries. If enough Americans migrate to Rednote, we could see an uptick in American knowledge about real Chinese lives. We could see an uptick in interest in studying China in America. The more China experts America is able to educate, cultivate, and hire into foreign policy circles, the better relations between these two gargantuan nations could be. So, no pressure, American TikTok refugees, but the fate of US-China relations, and by extension, the fate of the entire world, rests in your hands. In the meantime, find me on Rednote. I'll be watching from the sidelines, pen in hand.
I need historians to call this moment the red shift. We are at a point where global influence is literally tilting towards China, and not through the means of war or domination. It's through communication, it's through connection, and it's through culture. With all these gems I'm dropping, y'all better be citing me, APA or MLA, thank you very much. Remember that history repeats itself, and history has shown us that empires rise and fall in cycles. Just like the Industrial Revolution shifted power to the West some 250 years ago, this digital and cultural revolution that's happening right now can shift it back to the East. And I know people like to say how they're tired of living through history, but y'all, not to be dramatic, but I am so excited to be living in this moment, because you know why? We are entering a new age of globalization where influence is not won through wars and through battle. It's won through apps and algorithms. Y'all, I can literally talk so much about this, but I just remembered a comment that someone also posted on my original video, and they were like, do you really think Americans are going to learn Mandarin and they don't even know Spanish? Yes, spite is one hell of a motivator, and if there's one thing Americans do have, it's the audacity. You can be damn sure we're gonna learn Mandarin before they learn the second most spoken language in the United States, which is Spanish. Considering the French were our colonizers, I always wondered why we didn't have that same spark and spirit for protest as the French do, but now I see it. Now I see it. And you know, actually, I'm kind of proud. And I feel like all of this really highlights the fact that the red shift is at its core a linguistic movement, because if you think about history, language was typically imposed by empires. It was a top-down movement. People learned these languages by force. Historians, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've ever seen a grassroots linguistic movement at this scale. People are voluntarily diving into another language, not by force, by choice. The red shift is not going to be just a moment in history. It is going to be the clearest reflection of how the definition of power evolved in the digital age. I just think it's so funny that by America trying to hold China back, they inadvertently accelerated the same shift that they fought to prevent. I think this is a good indicator that connection, not control, will define the future.